Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of my most anticipated coasters as things are starting to open up again. In terms of the pandemic, I don't want to get political or anything. I don't want to discuss my personal beliefs about the matter or my political beliefs, but just matter of factly, there are some amusement parks around the country that are beginning to open up with restrictions and what they believe to be the safest measures that they can take to ensure that everyone can still join. Obviously, there's going to be limited capacity and sanitization and all of these different protocols depending on which specific amusement park you visit. So, with that being said, with with the season kind of finally starting, as for me, I'm very excited that I'm going to be able to, have some ride experiences this summer. I thought for a while that that might not happen, and while I was okay, and while I understood that I might have to wait for 2021, I was certainly hoping that I would get a chance to have some of those experiences this summer, and it looks like I might just get what I wanted. I might just get what I was hoping for. With that being said, I wanted to talk about a few of my most anticipated coasters for the new 2020 season. Um, I'm gonna break this up into two categories. The first one being the new for 2020 coasters, and for that I only have four of them. There's only four that are going to be new for 2020 that I'm planning on riding this summer. Hopefully, there'll be others that I get to next summer or in years to come. But so far, I only have four new for 2020 coasters on my trip plans this summer. The second category is going to be the top five most anticipated coasters that I plan on riding this year that are not new for 2020, but that I haven't personally ridden before. So that being said, I'm going to get to the first category, which is the top four new for 2020 coasters. And at number four is going to come in at Candymonium. So Candymonium is a little bit of an interesting it's a little bit of an interesting entry to this list. It's the lowest one on the list, but not because I'm not excited to ride it. I definitely am. I hear or I've seen from POV videos that it has what I would consider to be a pretty good layout. I've heard a lot of people raving about it, saying that it could compete with some of the upper tier B&M hypercoasters. And while I personally am not a huge fan of B&M rides overall, I do admit that they're just good plain fun. They're nothing that is going to get me super excited. They're not the most intense rides. They don't pack the most lively elements, but they are always at least fun. I always get off saying, that was worth the wait. That was worth the ride that I got on it. So Candymonium, with it being something that might be one of the upper tier versions of something that I would claim to be as something at least moderately fun, I'm actually very excited to ride it. I think it probably will be my new favorite B&M hypercoaster. Probably beating out Nitro. I know Nitro's pretty lame to some of you, but the only three B&M hypers I've ridden are Nitro, Apollo's Chariot, and Intimidator, so not a great class to choose from. I have yet to ride Diamondback or Mako, but Diamondback's actually something we might be getting to in the second category. But for now, Candymonium is probably, I anticipate it being my new favorite B&M hyper, and it's at one of my favorite amusement parks, Hershey Park, and I think it could very well be like one of those great one-two punch compliments to their current masterpiece, Skyrush. But enough with me raving about Skyrush. I do that all the time, and everyone gets super annoyed about it. So moving on this list, number three is Orion at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. Orion is going to be just the second B&M Giga in the country. I believe just the third overall. I think Leviathan is the only other B&M in the world. I'm not positive about that though. But I believe this is going to be B&M's third try at a B&M Giga. And while I have not been on Leviathan, I can say from having ridden Fury 325 that holy crap, they know how to make a good Giga coaster. Fury 325 is currently my third favorite coaster all time. It is incredible. It's amazing that they were able to make a B&M coaster, but give it some of the intense feeling that you get on an Intamin coaster. I think just because of its sheer size. I mean, it's massive. It's 325 feet tall and has over 6,000 feet of track length. I mean, so just in sheer size alone, of course, you're going to get somewhat of an intense ride. But man, does Fury 325 have this array of elements that just string together so perfectly? And I find myself, the pacing is almost flawless, where there's not really a moment on the ride where I'm bored. The first half has these big, graceful elements, whereas the second half, you get like these really good, you get three big back-to-back ejector hills. Yes, ejector hills on a B&M coaster, which is like really insane. So if Orion is anything like Fury 325, and from the POVs, it's not going to be exactly that. It looked a little underwhelming for, I guess compared to Fury 325, but it still looked really good, and it's still probably going to be one of the best, if not the best, coasters at Kings Island. So certainly something to be looking forward to this summer, and that's why it comes in at number 3 on the list. So moving into number 2, I have Jersey Devil Coaster. Jersey Devil Coaster is certainly interesting. Now, I have never personally ridden an RMC Raptor. I know there's only 2 in the world so far, being, wow, I'm blanking right now. Railblazer at California's Great America and Wonder Woman at Six Flags Fiesta Texas. So I have not been to either one of those parks, and therefore I have not been on either one of those rides. But I have seen the POVs from the ride, and as well as I've heard enthusiasts talk about, and like, wow, they say it's one of the most intense experiences that they've ridden. They say the transitions are super whippy. It just feels completely out of control, and I mean, I believe them from what I've seen. Like they look out of control. So Jersey Devil Coaster, with it being a new original layout, and now it's going to be the biggest RMC Raptor up to date, like that is pretty exciting, and it's going to be right at my home park in Six Flags Great Adventure. So I'll be, getting to ride it hopefully very consistently, over the years. On a down note, I don't know if Great Adventure is going to open this year, and as always, they pushed back construction even before the pandemic. They were sitting on their fat, lazy asses and not really doing anything in terms of ride construction for Jersey Devil Coaster, up to this point. So, the pandemic is not an excuse for Great Adventure, because they had plenty of opportunities before what mid-March, when basically a lot of the orders were being given around the country to shut down non-essential construction. They just didn't do it, because Six Flags always tends to plan their openings for like midsummer. Like, I don't know why they can't just get their acts together. I'm sure it's, I don't know the exact reason, but my guess would be mainly finances, that, they're just cheap and they don't want to pay whatever expenses would have to be incurred to get construction done in a more timely manner. But, that seems to be the case. Jersey Devil Coaster, the last I checked, it hadn't even been completed in construction yet. So I doubt, even if Great Adventure opens this year, that Jersey Devil will be able to get a ride for me. So unfortunately, it looks like that'll probably have to wait till 2021. But since it was originally supposed to open in 2020, I thought I'd have it on this list. It does. Now, getting back to the actual ride, it looks really good. My one concern is actually it might be the fact that it's bigger than the other two Raptors. Part of what made the other two Raptors look really intense, I can't speak from personal experience, but part of what made them look really intense is that they were so small and compact. And I'm worried that the intensity will be a little lost with the fact that the elements seem to be more drawn out. And I'm just a little bit, I guess I'm a little bit pessimistic, but I'm still anticipating that that will be my new favorite ride at the park. Sorry, El Toro. I love El Toro, but El Toro is not quite the grand almighty masterpiece that everyone makes it out to be. Not for me personally. So I'm anticipating Jersey Devil to be my new favorite coaster at the park, but I'm a little concerned with the fact that the elements seem to be a bit more drawn out than the original RMC Raptor clones, and that's why it's number 2 and not number 1 on this list. So number 1 is actually going to be Pantheon at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Now, I did not mention Iron Gwazi, mainly because I am not planning on going to Florida this year. I'm planning on going to Florida next year in 2021, which is why I didn't have Iron Gwazi on the list. So with that being said, Pantheon is the final coaster, the fourth and final coaster that's new for 2020 that I'll be hopefully riding this year. Again, Virginia is another state that I don't really know what's happening. It's going to kind of be taken day by day. I don't wish for them to do anything that might put people or communities or their overall state at risk. So no pressure, Virginia, take your time. But I do hope that at some point in 2020 I will get to ride Pantheon, but who knows? But it is my number 1 most anticipated coaster. I have to say, with Intamin being my favorite manufacturer, Pantheon is a pretty cool Intamin layout, multi-launch coaster. It has 2 launches. Then we get a roll back into a spike, and then back over the launch pad into what looks like a beautiful top hat. The elements just look really cool. I don't know. I mean, let me just say this. I've seen POVs of coasters that look amazing, and then they're terrible. And then I've seen, like when I ride the coaster, it's terrible. And then I've seen POVs of coasters where the POV looks terrible, and then I ride the coaster and it's amazing. So I really can't say one way or the other from the POV, but it's with it being Intamin, with it having 2 launches and a top hat, like that's kind of like it's hitting all the sweet spots for me as an enthusiast. Like those are kind of things that I like in a coaster, especially with it being Intamin. So that's why it comes in at number 1 on my most anticipated new for 2020 coasters that I am planning on experiencing this coming summer. Now moving on to the second category on this list, which is the top 5 coasters that I'm planning to ride for the first time in 2020, but are not new for 2020 themselves. So this one was a little tougher to choose from. There's a few coasters in Busch Gardens, Williamsburg that I haven't been on. There's Mystery Mine at Dollywood, which I heard, was okay. But I ultimately didn't choose it for this list. I didn't choose any of the 3 at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg that I have yet to go on, besides Pantheon, are Invader, Tempesto, and Verbolten. All of them seemed pretty good, but none of them seemed quite exciting enough to crack this list. With that being said, I have to move over to Ohio and Indiana for my 2 spots. That all of these coasters are at Holiday World and Kings Island. Now, there is one coaster that didn't make this list, but it's going to be an honorable mention, and that's going to be Beast at Kings Island. while the Beast is currently, I believe it's the longest in the world. Somebody please comment and tell me if I'm wrong about that, but I believe it's the longest coaster in the world, or at least in the country. And it has like, wow, like so many elements out and back. You know, the whole thing's like 6 minutes. Like it's quite a ride. But it just missed it because these 5 rides, I believe, or I at least think, I hope, I'm projecting they are going to be a little bit stronger contenders. So at number 5, I have Thunderbird at Holiday World. Now, Thunderbird is a B&M wing coaster. It is the only B&M wing coaster in the country that is launched. I've been on 2 B&M wing coasters already. The other 2 were Gatekeeper at Cedar Point and Wild Eagle at Dollywood. I wasn't particularly impressed with either coaster. I gotta say, I kind of really, really hate the vest restraints on these. I don't know if Thunderbird uses the same vest restraints as Gatekeeper and Wild Eagles, but man, those vest restraints are suffocating. The ones at Gatekeeper aren't too bad. The ones at Wild Eagle were god awful. I remember sitting on that brake run and I literally couldn't breathe. It's this weird texture. I don't exactly know what the material is made of, but it has this kind of leathery feel that it's hard. You know, it's not like the soft vest restraints, which are very comfortable. I like the ones on Maverick. The Maverick soft vest restraints are excellent. I love those. These are hard and tight, and they compress your chest, and just very uncomfortable. And when you're sitting on the brake run, if it's a particularly long dispatch for the train in front of you, wow, that can be a nightmare. So I'm a little worried about Thunderbird. That's probably why it's not higher on this list. But what makes it cool is that it has the launch, and that's something I haven't experienced yet on a B&M wing coaster. And I'm hoping that will add some intensity to the ride that was kind of lacking on Wild Eagle and Gatekeeper. So it should. I've heard great things about Thunderbird. A lot of people give Holiday World that whole 1-2 punch honorable mention, or they'll place it very high if they do a 1-2 punch list because of the fact that Thunderbird is such a great supporting coaster to the number 1 coaster at the park, which is actually number 4 on this list, and that would be Voyage. Now, Voyage at Holiday World is a coaster that is it's a classic coaster. It's one that's basically I would say every coaster enthusiast who's ridden Voyage probably has it in their top 10. And I'm somebody, I don't think I will have it in my top 10, but I definitely think it'll make my top 20. I'm hopefully sometime in the future, I'm planning on doing a top 25. So I'm planning on Voyage making my top 25. One of the things I'm worried about Voyage is that, again, it's a wooden coaster. And I've heard from some people that it is a little bit on the rougher side. Now, I'm not a huge fan of wooden coasters, even when they're smooth. So the fact that this one has an added element of roughness to what would already be your typical rough wooden feel, I'm a little worried. But with that being said, it is deemed to be one of the greatest experiences. It's your classic out and back coaster. It's super long. It's built on it uses the terrain really well. So like the second half, it's built on a bit of a hill. So you're coming downhill during the second half of the ride, so you continue to build up speed, which is why the ride never really dies. Right, that's why the ride really never dies down. So that being said, I think it's really great. I will say this though, the length is not going to be enough to save it on its own. I do like long coasters, but I also think that just because a coaster is really long doesn't mean it's necessarily really good. Some of my favorite coasters are actually coasters that are a bit on the shorter side, like the minute to minute 15 mark. That tends to be the sweet spot for a really good coaster that knows how to pack a punch. But with that being said, Voyage is still going to be one of my most highly anticipated coasters because of all of the great praise that I've heard from coaster enthusiasts leading up to this review. So with that being said, moving into the top three, at number 3 is Diamondback at Kings Island. Now, like I said with Candymonium in the other list, I'm not a huge fan of B&M rides, but this one is considered by many to be one of the best, if not the best, B&M hyper in the country. The other contender is usually Mako. Obviously, both of these pale into comparison to Shambhala, which I hear is the best in the world. I haven't been on that one either, but I hope I get to ride Shambhala one day because people who don't like B&M at all come off raving about Shambhala. So I can only imagine how great Shambhala is. But Diamondback is usually in that top 2 with Mako in terms of B&M hypers in America. So I'm actually really, really looking forward to Diamondback. I didn't get a whole lot of information from the POV. It looked like your average hypercoaster from the POV, but I usually I try not to put too much stock into ride POVs because again, like I said earlier, sometimes I look at the POV, it's great, and the ride kind of sucks. And sometimes I look at the POV, I'm like, that looks kind of underwhelming, and the ride blows me away. So I really don't know what to make of the POV, which is why I'm going to trust the enthusiasts on this one, and I'm gonna wait until I actually ride it to give my thoughts. And I'm very excited and to hopefully be riding it this summer. At number 2 is Banshee, also at Kings Island. Now, Banshee is one that most of my anticipation comes from watching the POV video. I mean, like I said, I usually don't put too much stock into a POV video, but man, Banshee just looked incredible. It's almost like this. It's like a B&M invert that has like a hyper layout. The elements are just so outstretched. It seems to expand all over the park. Each individual element is just massive, and the transitions look seamless. And boy, does Banshee just look to be a freaking B&M invert masterpiece. It'll probably, I mean, I can't say probably, but I'm assuming at this point it will be my new number 1 B&M invert. So what could be number 1? Well, let's stay right at Kings Island, and let's go to the GCI King, Mystic Timbers. Now, Mystic Timbers is a newer ride. It came out in 2016. And right off the bat, everyone started raving about Mystic Timbers, minus the shed. I know the shed's underwhelming, but I usually don't care too much about that theming crap anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong. Theming is great, and it does add to the experience, but overall, it's not going to make or break a ride. A ride can be really great and have absolutely zero theming. So I don't really factor in the shed to the hype that I'm giving this ride. The fact that this is considered by most people to be the number 1 GCI is very exciting. I've heard that this has great airtime. I've seen glimpses of POVs, although I've tried not to watch the whole POV because I want to be surprised by the ride. But I did notice this like really cool double up element that looked like it provided really good airtime. Overall, the ride is supposed to provide really quality airtime. So I'm really excited. That'll probably be the first ride I run to when I get to Kings Island. I mean, minus virtual queuing. So if they have virtual queuing, obviously that'll be the first ride I reserve on my phone. But either way, that will definitely be the ride that I try to get on first when I go to Kings Island. So that's it for this video. That's my top 4 new for 2020 coasters that I'm looking forward to riding, and the top 5 that I'm looking forward to riding for the first time in 2020. So with that being said, I hope you liked this video. Please comment, give a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you all again soon.